Hi friends, welcome back to the Kitch-Em show. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make this amazing, delicious Christmas strata. This is something that I used to make with my mom, and it's a special recipe for me. And me sharing this with you is part of me sharing a little bit of my heart with you as well, so I hope you enjoy. Technically, you'll need about 12 hours to make this recipe because it needs to set in the fridge overnight, but you can just make it in one fell swoop and it'll work in a pinch and still taste delicious. I'm starting out by using a thick layer of butter to grease this glass pan. Eggs have a tendency to stick to the inside of pans, so I'm doing everything I can to make sure that does not happen. Traditionally, this recipe calls for day-old stale Italian bread. You don't want the bread to be too old because you still need to cut it into small pieces for the layering. Think of it as like an egg and bread lasagna. And that first layer is going to start with the pieces of bread you just cut up. It's actually kind of fun to lay down the pieces of bread because you want the bottom to not have any gaps, and it's like playing Tetris with food. Now we're going to move on to making the meat and vegetable mixture. We're going to start by chopping up a whole yellow onion. And I don't know about you, but watching someone chop up an onion is always satisfying. But you can skip ahead if you don't like it. In a large skillet over medium heat, add about 1.5 tablespoons of butter and a drizzle of olive oil. Once the butter is completely melted, add in your chopped onions and let them cook until the onions are almost translucent. I also cracked in some peppercorns as well. And here's where you can get a little bit creative with what kind of meat you add. I prefer Italian ground sausage, but you can do country sausage, you can do ground pork, you can do bacon if you like, or if you're vegetarian, you can add up some ground up tofu or mushrooms if you prefer. And you can also get creative with what vegetables you add as well. Because this is a Christmas strata, I wanted red and green veggies, so I went with red bell pepper and zucchini and kept the skin on. I chopped up a small zucchini into these quarter-sized pieces and also chopped up about a medium-sized red bell pepper and added them to the pan. Next, I'm adding in dried Italian seasoning. At first, I started with about 1 teaspoon, but then I doubled that and it ended up being about 1 tablespoon at the end. I especially love spinach in my strata, so I'm adding in about 3 cups of fresh spinach and reducing the heat down to about a medium-low. And I'm going to let that wilt in the pan with the lid on. And it's so satisfying to watch. If you don't like watching wilting spinach, then I don't know if we can be friends. Just kidding. And I'm adding about 1/4 cup of water here so that there is some moisture and steam for the spinach to wilt down. And while we're waiting for the spinach to cook down, in a large mixing bowl, we're going to add in 9 eggs. Yes, 9 eggs. And then we're going to add in a cup of half and half, and then a 1/2 cup of half and half mixed with 1/2 cup of water. We're back to seasoning, so adding in 1 tablespoon of Italian seasoning, 1/2 teaspoon of dried mustard, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, and we're going to use a wire whisk to mix this up really well and make sure that there's air being incorporated into this egg mixture. Now let's check on that spinach. It looks pretty wilted, and when I remove the lid, a bunch of water drips down, which is perfectly fine. I'm noticing that I don't have quite enough spinach to my liking, so I'm going to go in and add some more and let that wilt down as well. And once the veggie and meat mixture is done, then we're going to go back to the bread layer and start scooping in the veggies into an even layer on top of the bread. Don't forget to reserve some of this mixture for another layer. In other words, don't use it all now. And now I'm adding in a layer of shredded cheeses. I have a Colby Jack mix as well as an Italian mix that has Parmesan and mozzarella in it. Now's the time to pour in the egg mixture. I think this is my favorite part because it's so satisfying. You want to make sure you fully coat the cheese and all of the meat mixture evenly. And I'm going to use my fingers to make sure the bread pieces are fully submerged in the egg mixture. The bread pieces will absorb the egg, which is necessary for the strata to develop the right texture. I'm creating another layer here, starting with the bread as the base. Then I'll add in the remaining vegetable meat mixture on top of that, and then layer with cheese. And then I sliced up some cherry tomatoes to add in some extra flavor and pops of red on top, which I think makes it look a little more festive. What do you think? Now I'm going to wrap this up with plastic wrap and let this sit in the fridge overnight or for about 10 to 12 hours so that the egg mixture gets fully absorbed into the bread. About an hour before breakfast time, you'll take the strata out of the fridge and preheat your oven to 375 degrees. Once the oven is preheated, bake it for 20 minutes uncovered. At the 20-minute mark, you'll pull the strata out and cover it with aluminum foil and set the timer for an additional 30 minutes. Once the timer's up, you'll remove the foil and let the steam release into the oven, so that way if the water does drip down into the strata, it can evaporate out and not make your strata soggy. The cheese should be fully melted, the tomatoes should be fully cooked, and if you look around the pan, you should see what looks like an egg custard. After it sits for about 10 minutes, it's ready to serve and eat. This is so delicious, and it keeps for a couple of days in the fridge, so you can nibble on it all day long if you like, or nibble on it for a few days. It's truly one of my favorite things to have around Christmas time because it brings up so many wonderful memories, and if you decide to make it, I hope that you have wonderful memories with it as well. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful and Merry Christmas. Mwah! Bye!